Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Vijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatiravanam Chadi Tira Jamunatiravanam Chadi Tiravanacha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Dana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Hari Vidivacharya Astaksara Sakti Srimad Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. Raghunandan, you're not doing a very good job at social distancing. Just the opposite. Figure out a way to social distance yourself. For those of you that like to look up the verse that we'll be discussing this evening, it's chapter 14, chapter 12, text number 38. 10, 12, 38. And it's towards the end of the chapter, dealing with Agasura. It's kind of like the third section. The first section of his chapter is the coward boys going out. This is now, if they're young, they're 5 years old. The previous verse says that. And so it's calves. They haven't graduated to cows yet. And coming shortly after this pastime is the Damodara Lila. So it's definitely their young. And the first section of the chapter is what the cowherd boys do when they go out and they play. They're herding cows with their calves, but they're not really herding calves. They're playing, and the calves follow behind the boys. And so it's some very nice description of what they do, and then kind of the culmination of that is that celebrated verse, Krita Punya Punja, how many lifetimes of pious activities have these young boys undergone to play with the Supreme Lord. This whole section, very important section. The next, in comes Aghasura. Specifically, Krishna by his Yogamaya potency summoned Aghasura. It was Lila time. And we're going to hear now Krishna had a reason. He wanted to liberate this terrible person, Aghasura, because he's compassionate. So we'll hear. So starting with the translation, Krishna is the cause of all causes. The causes and effects of the material world, both higher and lower, are all created by the Supreme Lord, the original controller. This very same message is described elsewhere in several places, but although he's the cause, he's the non-doer. There's all that discussion. He causes, but he doesn't cause. It's a very interesting concept and very important concept. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he describes, he created the varnashram system, but yet I'm the non-doer. Right? Chatra vidha bhajante mam jana sukata norjana. He creates the system, but he's the non-doer. He does, but he doesn't do it. So he's the cause of all causes and effects, and he remains aloof or unattached to the cause that he's the cause of and the cause and effects that follow that. So that's what's being said here again. Krishna is the cause of all causes. The cause and effects, the causes and the effects of those causes of the material world, both higher and lower, are all created by the Supreme Lord, the original controller. When Krishna appeared as the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, he did so by his causeless mercy. So he creates the world, and then he enters into the world that he creates. Consequently, for him to exhibit his unlimited opulence was not at all wonderful. Indeed, he showed such great mercy that even Aghasura, the most sinful miscreant, was elevated to being one of his associates and achieving Sarupya Mukti, which is actually impossible for materially contaminated persons to attain. Now, in the word for word, in the verse, it's not Sayuja Mukti. The word is Atma Samyam. Atma Samyam, a likeness of him. So Prabhupada has chosen to translate it as Sarupya Mukti. But I'm letting you know ahead of time, towards the end we're going to hear Jiva Goswami say something different. Not Sarupya Mukti, Atma Samyam, he indicates as Sayuja. It's coming attractions. We'll discuss that how can this acharya say this and that acharya say that? Okay, so the before we go into the commentaries, I'll read Prabhupada's purport. The word Maya is also used in connection with love, because that's Naitad Vichitram Manujarba Mayana. Mayana. Manuja Arba Mayana. Of Krishna, this is word for word now, you have your text in front of you. Of Krishna, who appeared as the son of Nanda and Yashoda, being compassionate upon them. So he appeared because of his compassion upon them. But in the purport, Prabhupada writes, the word Maya is also used in connection with love. So the usual sense of Maya is illusion, but it can also be love. Out of Maya, or love, a father has affection for his child. Therefore, the word Mayinaha indicates that Krishna, out of love, appeared as the son of Nanda Maharaj and assumed the form of a human child. Manuja Arbha. He assumed the form of a human child. Krishna is the cause of all causes. He is the creator of cause and effect, and he is the supreme controller. Nothing is impossible for him. Therefore, that he enabled even a living being like Aghasura to attain the salvation of Sarupya Mukti was not at all wonderful for Krishna. Krishna took pleasure in entering the mouth of Aghasura in a sporting spirit along with his associates. Therefore, when Aghasura, by that sporting association, as maintained in the spiritual world, was purified of all contamination, he attained Sarupya Mukti and Vimukti by the grace of Krishna. For Krishna, this was not at all wonderful. That's Prabhupada's purport. So we're going to hear several things elaborated, that he's the cause of all causes and effects, and yet he remains aloof. Then we'll hear some more about that. He, by his causeless loving affection, he assumed the form of a human child, the son of Nanda and Jasoda, although eternally he's the son of Nanda and Jasoda. Or in Goloka, Vrindavan, in Krishna Loka, he is eternally the son of Nanda and Jasoda. But when it comes to his Prakat Lila in this world, he manifested a form that was the son of Nanda and Jasoda. Then the third emphasis is the mercy emphasis. Krishna didn't have to do anything. It's quite extraordinary, out of the ordinary, that someone that's so demoniac becomes liberated. Now, there's other sections that we've discussed on this 10th canto. Every single demon that Krishna killed got liberation of one type or another. And that's not the case with other forms of the Lord. When Hiranyakashipu was killed by Lord Nrsimhadev, he didn't achieve liberation. When Ravana was killed by Ram, he didn't achieve liberation. And so forth. But all the demons killed by Krishna, and not only killed by Krishna, but killed by the representatives of Krishna, by Arjuna and Bhima and so forth. And there's a lot of commentary on this. They achieve liberation because they're instruments of Krishna to kill someone, to give them liberation. All the soldiers on the battlefield, they achieved liberation. They died before Krishna, they achieved liberation. So let's hear commentary. The human child form of Krishna is his Swarup. Manuja Mayinaha. For Maya is well known to mean Swarup in the Shrutis. He is the one who causes, by his own free will, Vedasaha, and is the supreme form among all the expansions and expansions of expansions. For him, it is not remarkable that Aghasura was purified of all his sins by touching him. I mean, Krishna touched him. And by Krishna's touching him, he was purified. He not only touched him, he went into his mouth. He went into the mouth of Bakasura. And both of those demons achieved liberation. Specifically, Bakasura, it says, achieved Sarupya. Same form as the Lord in the spiritual world, although he tried to kill Krishna. Aghasura was purified of all sins by touching him, or was purified of his bad odor by his touch. The second meaning can be taken because in Putana's case also, her body was freed of bad odor. Remember when they burned her body, it had this fragrant scent, a guru. Burning bodies don't smell like that. That was in a previous purport. Because Krishna and his friends used his dead body, that's Aghasura, as a playground, it must have been so. That is to say, after Aghasura left his body, and the body of Aghasura dried up, cowherd boys would go there and play like it was a playground. And it couldn't have been that it smelled bad. So the bad odor was gone. That's the logic. Aghasura also attained a similar body to Krishna, Atma Samyam, which was very, very rare for a demon, Asatam. Sayuja is rare for the demons, and Sarupya is even rarer, Su Durlabham, as this is reserved for the devotees. But now Jiva Goswami is going to indicate, he doesn't say it wasn't Sarupya, he says it is Sayuja. That's here. Jiva Goswami, in one commentary, writes, seeing that some people would be astonished that a greatly sinful person like Agha could get liberation, Shukadev speaks of the Lord's power in 2 verses. Nothing is astonishing for the Lord, who is the best among lower and higher creatures, among all angsas and angsis, since he causes creation. This means that he is the supreme independent being. Because of that, he was most merciful, Mayinaha, as the son of Nanda, Manu Jarbha. His famous, outstanding characteristic is his mercy in showing informal pastimes without reverence. Now this is Braja Lila. The awe and veneration is absent, and with those intimate associates, because they have that regard for him, he enjoys pastimes without reverence. And that's his special mercy, and it's deserving for those that have that regard for him. So it's reciprocation of love. Therefore, this is not astonishing. That's deliverance of Aghasura. Paragraph. Agha had a similar form, since without a similar form, the soul could not enter into Krishna. Well, it sounds like Sayuja, because that's what we hear is hovered in the air and Sayuja. This was not attainable by sinful people. How could such offender to great devotees, the boys of Gokula, get similarity to the Lord? The sinful nature was destroyed. Here's the answer to that question. The sinful nature was destroyed by the special power of the touch of the Lord, who appears in this world by mercy independently, without considering pure or impure, in order to pay attention to the degraded state of the fallen jivas, like Agha. Paragraph. Listen to this. The Atma was not a demon. The demonic nature is a covering, or upadi. That covering was destroyed. It is not a fault of the Lord to show mercy to his faultless part. Rather, it is praiseworthy, since the Lord showed the highest mercy of destroying his demonic nature, the demonic nature of Agha. How did he do it? Just stepped into his mouth. Finished? There's other instances with Baka and with the serpent that was swallowing Nanda Maharaj. Just the touch of his foot. Finished. It took much more with Kaliya. He was really down and out. Krishna had to dance on his foot, stomp on his head, and flatten his hoods and everything. But he became purified by Krishna's touch. Sanatana Goswami writes, we'll come back and cover some of these points. Seeing that some people would be astonished that a greatly sinful person like Agha could get liberation, same, Sukadev speaks of the Lord's power in two verses. The Lord is supreme, the supreme creator. Masya Vedasaha. The Lord is supreme creator of lower and higher beings, or supreme creator of cause and effect, the supreme creator of all beings in the past and future. Varanam. He is the supreme creator because he creates Brahma and is the cause of all creation. Then he goes through three other options of how that same little section can be unpacked Sanskrit-wise. Or, Mayinaha can mean he who has wealth or beauty, Ma, or he who displays his unlimited wealth. Or, he is merciful, Mayinaha, to the cowherd boys, Manu Jarbha. As a cowherd, he displays his powers as the Lord. Therefore, this pastime is not astonishing. So here's the word, attained likeness with the Lord. Atma Satmyam means he attained the same form as Brahma. It's not Lord Brahma, it's Brahma or Brahman, or Atma or Nirvana. He attained liberation. That is stated in the second canto, Muktir Hitvanyata Rupam Svaropena Vyavastiti. That's a very important verse. It's quoted often, so often by Prabhupada. Real liberation is this: Muktir, the cessation of material activity, Muktir Hitvanyata Rupam, or Nirvana. But beyond, real mukti is Swarupena Vyavastati. You attain a spiritual form and you engage in activities in your spiritual form. When the Bhagavatam teaches mukti, that's what it teaches. It's not nirvana, it's beyond nirvana. Clear? Swarupa, one's own form. vyavastati, being situated in, and doing activities in one's spiritual form. That's mukti. Liberation means giving up false forms and being situated in one's swarup. If you want to look it up later, 10.2.6, excuse me, 2.10.6, sorry about that. Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 6. It's quoted many times. You'll find it in Bhagavad Gita when Krishna is explaining what is samadhi. Canto 6, Chapter 6, Bhagavad Gita, starting around text 19 through 20-something. It's quoted again. Bhakti is real liberation, and real liberation is engaging in your spiritual form and spiritual activities. Not just cessation of material activities, positive. So, he ends, Sanatana Goswami, he attained what was most rare for demons. Quote, how could this happen for a person who offended the great devotees of Gokula? He offended the cowherd boys. They went inside his mouth and they passed out. They became unconscious. Answer, he was purified by the touch of the Lord, by the special power of the Lord's touch. His great offense, Takaha, was destroyed. And our last is Jiva Goswami makes commentary in Karmasandarbha. Karmasandarbha is the Bhagavatam commentary that's almost all the verses of the entire Bhagavatam, all 12 cantos. Commentary is Karmasandarbha. So here's Karmasandarbha translation or commentary on this verse. This was not astonishing for the Lord, who was supreme among all lower and higher beings, since he was the creator and mercifully appeared as the son of Nanda. Agha, by the way, Agha means sin. Agha attained similarity to the Lord, generally unobtainable by a sinful person, because he was purified of his sin by the touch of the Lord. Paragraph. Krishna has the greatest Shakti. He is the cause of everything. He is independent in his pastimes. He could deliver such a fallen jiva. All this is shown by this pastime. He, Agha, attained oneness with the Lord. Atma, Samyam, he attained Sayuja. Now, Prabhupada very clearly translates this Atma, Samyam, Sarupya, equal form of the Lord. I'll go back to the word for word. Atma Samyam, to a body exactly resembling that of Narayana. Atma Samyam. Atma, in this case, is the personality of Godhead, not just the jiva. It can mean multiple things depending upon context. So, Atma Samyam, a body exactly resembling that of Narayana. That's how Prabhupada has rendered it. But it can also be a body like Atma Samyam. So, like, who can be like? One can say you can't. But Sayuja, which is what my understanding has always been, Aghasura merged into the body of Krishna. That's Sayuja. Jiva Goswami is saying he attained Sayuja. So now, how do we get two different understandings from different acharyas, different understandings of the same event? Are you puzzled? Would you like to be unpuzzled? You can, when after class, you can go to Brahma Samhita, text 61. And there's a verse that starts off sounding like 1866 Bhagavad Gita. And the beginning of text 61 reads, Dharman anyan parityaja mamekam bhaja vishvasam. Sounds like 1866. The translation, this is Bhaktisiddhanta's translation, abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. But then the ending is a little different. Yadrishi yadrishi shraddha siddhir bhavati tadrishi. And this word siddhir is translated by Bhaktisiddhanta as realization. So one gets realizations corresponding with one's faith. Yadrishi yadrishi shraddha. Shraddha. Faith. Yadrishi yadrishi. Yadrishi yadrishi. It's said twice. As shraddha, as according to one's faith, siddhir bhavati. Tadrishi. Tadrishi. Yadrishi tadrishi. As this, so that. Yavat tavat. You familiar with that combination? I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I've learned this from reading so many verses. When it's a common practice, when a metaphor is used, you want to explain something unknown by something known. So you say to something known, and you say yavat, then tavat. So yadrishi, tadrishi. According to faith, then there's realization. That's the meaning. So how is it? One explanation, there be others, one explanation of how Prabhupada and seemingly Sanatana Goswami writes this way, and Jiva Goswami writes that way. Like, guys, can you kind of talk it over and come out with one answer, please? Because we're confused if you have two different answers. We don't need to be confused. They're expressing their realization. Yadrishi yadrishi shraddha siddhir bhavati. Tadrishi. Realization arises according to faith. As the faith, so the realization. In either case, it's quite amazing. And what prompted Krishna to give him liberation anyways? I mean, what prompted Krishna to walk into his mouth? What prompted Krishna, going back into the chapter, by Yogamaya potency, he summoned Agha. He wanted to deliver him. So what was, he doesn't need a cause. We're used to cause-effect, but he's not, there's no cause-effect. He is the creation of all causes and all effects, but there's nothing that causes his mercy. He's merciful. And he can exhibit his mercy this way, and he can exhibit his mercy that way, and he's always merciful. He just will exhibit it different ways at different times, causelessly, according to his volition, his causeless will. Now, when we can trace out something that says Aghasura was the younger brother of Putana. Baka and Aghasura were younger brothers of Putana. And Putana did a little service. Aghasura didn't do any service, but his sister did some service. I mean, not big service, but she did some service. And that was in the previous commentary we read just yesterday. And so, here's his sister. She did some service. Let me deliver her. Let me deliver him. But he doesn't need a reason. He doesn't need a cause. He wanted to deliver him. Now what about us? had this, nice discussion today with a devotee about going back to Godhead in this lifetime, in one lifetime. Is it likely? What's it dependent upon? Is it dependent upon, like what Ram says to Vibhishan or to that assembly? If one just surrenders to me once, all we have to do is just surrender once. We had this lovely discussion about that. Surrender is an ongoing process. We don't just, once upon a time I surrendered to Krishna, so that's it. I can do anything, and I'm going to, at the end of this life, go back to Godhead. I can do anything. No problem. Because I surrendered once. That's not our teaching. The surrender is an ongoing process. But even with our surrendering as an ongoing process, is there a certainty that we're going to go back to Godhead? Is it a certainty that we'll become 100% pure in this lifetime? And we'll experience it? We'll experience Brahmabhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakangsati Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. It's an important verse. Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. You labate, you attain bhakti. So what happened before then? What is inside of the bhakti? Is that bhakti or it's not bhakti? You have to do the Brahmabhuta, Prasanatma, you have to do all that other attainment, and then your bhakti begins. We had that discussion today. That's why I'm spending some time just on it. There's different perspectives. And one perspective is there's practice, and that's also, the sadhana bhakti is also bhakti, but it's not mature yet. And then when bhakti is mature, then that's bhakti. So there's the becoming and there's the mature. But to go back to Godhead, it's not just sadhana, it's maturing. And so there's a sustained effort and a sustained eagerness in submission to receive the mercy of the Lord. And then it matures. Not just by mechanical doing something, ringing a bell and waving incense or saying a mantra kind of distractedly or mechanically. There's potency in the activities of bhakti, but the real essence of bhakti is not the activity. The essence of bhakti is our submission. Now, fortunately, the holy name is totally non-different than Krishna, is totally independent, as Krishna is totally independent. And we're very mercifully given the chanting of the holy name. And for that matter, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is also non-different than Krishna. So even if we're distracted and this and that, not yet pure, we're becoming purified, for sure. We're becoming purified. But Krishna is not obliged to reveal, I am non-different than my holy name, if we're distracted. I mean, he can, even to a bum or something. But you can get an honorary degree from a university without going to university. But that's not usual. Usual is you enroll in the university. And you make some effort to take the exams and attend classes and everything. So, Krishna can reveal himself. We can't experience Krishna without Krishna's mercy, even in the littlest way, what to speak of a more complete way. Krishna can make himself visible even to demons when Krishna was present. They weren't qualified, but Krishna made them qualified, at least enough qualified to see him. And that was purifying just to see him. What to speak of with Aghasura is touching him. So our acharyas have different realizations about the attainment of Aghasura. That's fine. Yadrashi, Shraddha, Siddhi, Bhavati, Tadrashi. It's a good phrase to remember. Text 61, Brahma Samhita. So whether it was Sayuj or Sarupya, Prabhupada says Sarupya, so we'll just stay with Sarupya. He attained Sarupya. That's pretty extraordinary. It was possible because Krishna made him sinless. And how did Krishna make him sinless? Just by touching him. Became sinless. So let us be touched by Krishna. But we're touched by Krishna through the process of bhakti anyway. We become free from sin, the reactions of sins, prarabdha karma, for sure, prarabdha karma. But then the tendency, vasanas, residual tendencies for material involvement, this way, that way, that requires Krishna's intervention. Not just something we do. It requires that we have to be eager for Krishna's intervention. Now, in Aghasura's case, he wasn't eager. Krishna gave it anyways. Krishna intervened. But for sadhakas, that's part of surrender and submission, is that eagerness for that association of Krishna, mercy of Krishna, shelter of Krishna, together with the activities of bhakti, that mood of bhakti, eagerness for that submission to Krishna and receiving Krishna's mercy. That's what sadhana bhakti it really is. That's what bhakti really is. And the practice of that is sadhana bhakti. It's in addition to the behaviors, the activities, it's the submission and service. Exactly what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya. Submission and service, with inquiry in the middle. So here we are. Shukadeva Goswami is understanding. People are going to read this and go, wow, how is this possible? He was bad. He interrupted Krishna's pastime to the cowherd boys, as Brahma did. But not only that, he attempted to kill the cowherd boys, the calves, and Krishna. That's bad. How did such a bad person get liberation? It's not astonishing. That's the statement that's being made by Shukadeva, and we're hearing. It's the all-powerful Krishna being compassionate. It's not at all astonishing. So that the sinful Agha became sinless by Krishna's touch, because Krishna wanted to give his compassion to him, so he did. Made him sinless. Then he got liberation. And that's, so, last point, that's not a fault, it's a quality. If you remember, when Hiranyaksha was killed, Hiranyakashipu performed the funeral for Hiranyaksha, and part of what he did was vilify Vishnu. He's partial. He's partial in favor of his demigods. It was a criticism. He is partial to the demigods, but he shows his partiality because of their affection for him. He reciprocates with their affection for him. And the demons, he frees them from their sinful propensity. When it's Krishna, he gives them liberation. So he appears to be partial. I was just reading on this topic. It's one of the Vedanta Sutra topics, by the way. Vedanta Sutra. And one day I'll conduct a class on this topic. But partiality is a flaw. You know, a realized Atma Rama person is impartial. They don't show favoritism towards one or disfavor towards another, like Krishna says. Tamaham sarvabhuteshu na me dveshosti na priyaha But then he turns around and says, but those are my devotees, I'm partial. He's partial because they're submitting to him and he's reciprocating what they're submitting to him. And those that don't, he reciprocates in kind. Okay, you want some combat? We'll do some combat, that's fine. So what appears to be a fault is a quality. His showing partiality to aga is his quality, not a fault. Another time we'll discuss. It's a nice topic. So let's see if there's some discussion. Anybody in the room would like to raise something? You've been taking notes. You must have something. Give me the microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
When someone reads this verse who is not having is not in Krishna consciousness, and he directly reads this 10th canto and especially this verse, so he may think that achieving the Swarupya as Agasura achieved is like an easy way than a devotee life or practicing devotee life. So you are going all these kind of regulations, rules and regulations, and these efforts.
Sure.
So,
sure.
How if somebody
Take a shortcut.
I asked this question. If somebody asked me this question, because sometime back in our office there was one Smartha Brahmana. He was asking me this question: why you want to practice this? Because even in the Ravana achieved this, and like that he was discussing with me. So, what kind of answer I can give it?
A couple of answers. One answer I've already given, which is, it's certainly possible you can achieve a diploma from Oxford University by some decree of Oxford University. Here's your certificate. You're a graduate of Oxford University. But that's not normal. The normal is you enroll in university. So we're doing that which the Vedas recommend. You know, you could ask the smart, did you accept Bhagavad Gita? You can say yes or no, but mostly they'll say yes. And then so on the authority of Bhagavad Gita, we follow the vidhis of bhakti. Not, you know, there's the honorary degree option, but that's not what Krishna asks for, and that's not what we're depending on. We're doing what Krishna wants. We follow the vidhis. And the purpose of following the vidhis, you can say it's to free us from sin. You can refer him, if you like, to Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmanohutam. Now Smartas know that verse. Mayavadis know that verse. And it's how, in the whole section following that is, by the process of sacrifice, some like it this way, that way, the other way, but the principle is freeing ones from the contamination of material involvement in the sinful reactions that cling to the soul because of that material involvement in sinful activity. So there's a process of cleansing. That our submission to the Supreme is to show him we want to come before him clean and pure. We don't want him to be our janitor. We want to come before him clean and pure. So he'll smile. So we follow the vidhis. And to you that looked like trouble or austerity. To me it looked like happiness. Because it's for the pleasure. That's why we do. For someone that isn't thinking for the pleasure of, wasn't thinking bhakti, it looks like trouble or austerity or something. Restrictions. It's restrictions. Yes. There's some inconvenience. Yes. Tapa. Life is meant for tapa. Rishabh. So, depends on the person. Yet sometimes smartists are just arguers. Anything you say, they'll hit the ping pong ball back at you, and they're not really interested in coming to any conclusion. They're interested in argument and debate. If that's the case, you can make a simple declaration and leave it at that. But in principle, the reason for following vidis is to please Krishna, and by so doing, we're also becoming purified. Makes us more fit to be in the presence of Krishna. But that's the bhakti principle. We do it because of bhakti. You could ask, your friend, are you married? Do you have children? You undergo some difficulty? Going to work every day and this and that, and so why'd you do that? Why do you do that? You don't have to do that. You have affection for your wife and children, so that's why you do what you do. We have affection for Krishna. That's why we do what we do. To you, that looks like, oh, that's austere. To a sannyasi, your life will look like, that's austere. Look what you do. Because of affection for your family members. Take the shortcut. Just be a sannyasi. But you can't maintain that position of sannyas without affection for Krishna. So whether it's this position, that position, affection for Krishna is the driving principle. That's why we do what we do. It's reaching for that position of furthering our natural affection for Krishna. That's why we do what we do. And you don't like it, that's okay. We like it. And you keep going to work and taking care of your wife and your children and like it. Because you have affection for them. We'll continue working for Krishna because we have affection for Krishna. Depends on the person and their argumentative nature and all that. Anyone else?
Raj, forgive me if I haven't heard it correctly. You mentioned that even the associates of Krishna, like Arjuna, even if someone killed by them gets a liberation.
That's what our acharyas say, yes.
And then I'm not able to understand then the other incarnations like Lord Rama, they didn't give the same kind of liberation.
They get freed from the sinful reaction, but not sarupya or sayuja. Is it clear? Wipe the slate clean is different than entering into the spiritual realm.
Guru Maharaj, I was thinking that Aghasura was touched by Krishna, but now I have the only...
Could you turn that speaker facing me, because then I can hear better, because her voice is soft. Okay, keep going.
So, chanting of the holy name is the only way that I can be touched by Krishna.
Why? It's the best means, it's not, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because I feel that I don't have any qualification to really, I can see Krishna or anything, but only the access that is via chanting of the holy name. But how can I feel that that Krishna is really pleased or anything?
How can you feel that Krishna is really what?
Krishna is pleased with whatever the chanting that I'm doing.
With the chanting that you're doing? Well, how you will feel yadrashi yadrashi shraddha, siddhi bhavati tadrashi. Your realization will be commensurate with your faith. There's the answer to your question. According to faith, you'll have that realization, or not. So your faith in the instructions, the scripture, the acharyas, setting the example, etc. Your faith will inspire you to chant with faith. You know, seeing with faith all those things, then it will increase, amplify, strengthen your faith, and then you'll have that, so you'll have the realization according to your faith. Is that all right? Raghunandan, you always have something. Can you take the masks just for the question part? Yeah. 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 Can you turn the microphone on? Because I don't think you're on.
Hare Krishna. So you were talking about surrender, and surrender is not a one-time thing.
Right.
It's every day I am trying to perform certain devotional activities, and I have a very limited capacity. To what extent am I going to apply the principle of surrender when I am practicing these daily activities?
That's up to you. To what extent?
In other words, how would I know like I am giving my best in terms of surrender?
Well, you can always give more than your best, whatever it is. So you're never doing your best.
On one hand,
Sincerity is and best are two different things. To your capacity, you're making effort. And okay, and, you know, each moment, is this my capacity? So it's in other words, my response is, we must always be striving. Prayasa. That, you know, for success in bhakti, there's two things, prayasa and kripa. And the prayasa is not just, you know, a mechanical effort. It's the devotional effort. And devotional effort knows no limit. So it's the yearning or the eagerness, uttaha, and it grows. And it can grow, and, you know, it can rise and subside even within a period of a moment. What to speak of, you know, a day or your japa or something. Smaller periods of time than your life. It's cultivation. Your question is, how do I know I'm trying my best and I'm responding? It's an ongoing effort. It's same, circling back to the starting point. It's an ongoing effort, and we strive, endeavor, hanker, aspire, strive, all those nice verbs. And stay there. That's mode of goodness. Just stay there, that's mode of goodness. And then by that steadiness of effort, it's cleansing and awakening. Both. Anything? No? You have something? Okay. Okay, you're going to do the online questions, yeah? Okay.
So, this is the question from Mahamantra Prabhu. He says, after the demons get liberated by Krishna, Sayuja and Sarupya, what will be their disposition towards Krishna compared to devotees who go back home, back to Godhead?
Same. No difference. Saropya is Saropya. The disposition is the same. Next. I mean, it varies from one jiva to another jiva, one entity to another entity, but in terms of category, it's the same.
This is by Aijun Zhang. He says, in the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada explains that Lord Shiva comes out of Lord Narayan's front head, but in other places I hear that Lord Shiva comes out of Brahma's front head. So is it the same teaching what you mentioned for the different commentary on Aghasura's liberation?
I'm not familiar with this reference that he's making, so I'd like to see the reference before I comment. Next.
He mentioned Bhagavad Gita 10.6 purport for
Okay,
that.
I'd have to look at it, sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else? Prabhupada ki? Good.